And I think what it really ultimately taught me more importantly was, believing in the value of yourself and what you're bringing to the table, and say, no, I'm not worth less money. This is my price because this is what I'm worth.
This is Venture Out Loud, where we have candid conversations on running a venture capital firm and investing in founders, planning for profits around a purpose, and making a positive impact on the world through entrepreneurship. I'm Navin Goyal, co-founder and CEO of Loud Capital here in Columbus, Ohio, and I want to welcome this special episode with Blake Overlock, our principal from Chicago who flew in today, and my man Ryan, COO of Loud Capital. Blake, welcome.
Very happy to be here. I love being in this city.
You just flew in this morning, correct?
Just flew in this morning, yeah.
Weather change was crazy?
No, it was pretty much the exact. Actually, no, it was a little warmer here. So it was a welcome change. Very welcome change.
Usually it's about 5 degrees warmer in my long experience between Chicago and Columbus. But love the city. I love actually your story. We can talk about the city all day. Let's talk about your story. So I'm just going to give a little preview here. We have some advertising. We have some companies working in HR. And then now we have venture capital. Please help us connect the dots here.
Yeah, absolutely. So my career started in advertising, working for a few different advertising agency firms, some pretty big names. But, ultimately, I didn't feel like what I was doing was having a real impact. And it just wasn't the right fit for me. And decided to go into business development. I had candidly resisted going into any sales or business development, type professions because my entire family, I think, is pretty much all worked in sales. And I resisted that a little bit. But, I talked to some people in my network and talked to friends and family about, what I should do with the next phase of my career. And ultimately decided to go into sales, right? But focus on small businesses and working with business owners and impacting their business in any way that I can. And I just loved the face-to-face interactions on a daily basis, talking to different business owners about different problems, different challenges they were facing. And I loved the strategic aspect of that as well. And over the course of that, working with all these founders, I would be meeting with people that, just left their very comfy 6-figure job at Accenture to start their own company.
I'm going to go back real quick to actually your first statement. You were feeling like you weren't having an impact. How can you explain that to someone who's maybe working 5 years in a job, maybe not feeling that unfulfilled, but can't put their finger on it? Maybe it's that, but can you explain to the audience here, not having an impact, what that means to you?
Yeah, I just, for me, working, I wanted to feel like I had a purpose, right? That I was actually delivering something and doing something that I could feel really proud of, right? And see an actual tangible impact beyond just the company's bottom line, right? And no, there's nothing against advertising, and I certainly enjoyed my time there, but I just didn't feel like I was having a real impact to beyond the bottom line and actually impacting people's lives and helping improve those lives of those people.
And I would say that the people we talk to, the people we work with, it seems to be a common theme, because my guess is, just like myself in school and many years of school, there really wasn't talk about this purpose. There really wasn't talk about impact, but it was task-oriented, getting a job, fulfilling duties that were asked by the company that you were hired for. So in my trajectory of education and career, purpose really wasn't an element that was discussed. So I have a feeling there's a lot of people out there that find themselves in various jobs or careers or phases where they're scratching and saying, what is going on here? Why do I feel like I want more?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think a lot of that falls on the company itself and the leadership, right? Because, I was working for these great advertising agencies, with these big names, but, you're sitting there and you're just wondering, like, what am I really doing here? What am I really bringing to the table And, what else is out there? Because you're sitting there and you're feeling unfulfilled and it's tough to put your finger on that, right? It can be really tough to like, what am I not liking about this? I'm working for one of the biggest advertising agencies in the world, right? And I'm completely unfulfilled and not enjoying this. And I think, part of it, like I said, is on the company, but you really have to look inward at yourself and think about, what do I really want to do? Because, you're growing up, especially, I'm an older millennial, I will add, an older millennial. But I remember I worked at 3 different companies in the first 3 years after I graduated. Wow. And that was crazy to the older members of my family. Like, oh my God, are you ever just going to stay at a company? And part of it was,
where's your loyalty?
Yeah, where's your loyalty? And it's like, well, where's the company's loyalty to their employees as well, too. Yeah, I mean, that was just something that I personally experienced. And I said, you know what, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do something and I'm going to change my path here.
So then after the advertising gig, you went to where?
Okay, so my first sales job, I was slinging copiers. And it's thank you, Ryan. I always appreciate the groan. And that's typically the reaction that you hear is because people are like, whoa, okay, selling copiers. I mean, it's up there with selling used cars and it's up there with logistics sales. Like it is a grind. I actually equate it to being in a fraternity in some respects because you meet someone who sells copiers, who has also sold copiers, and there's an instant bond between those people.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, oh yeah, I get you. Like I know you intimately now. I know you intimately and I just met you.
Yeah. There is real empathy there, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Although
absolutely.
the last person that I read about who sold copiers, I believe was Sarah Blakely of Spanx. I'm almost positive she sold door to door. Or was that a different product?
That might be true, and I wouldn't be surprised to hear that.
Yeah, I'm almost positive.
Right. Yeah,
I'm almost positive.
Yeah,
I'm not surprised to hear that. You learn a lot of sales, but it's perseverance. How long did you last in that job?
So, I was told, if you go work in copier sales, you'll have if you last 6 months, you'll have recruiters knocking on your door. And I lasted almost a year and a half. I think in between a year and a half.
Wow. If there was a gong here or something we can say overachiever or a trophy or a little star I can put on your sweater there. No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But then again, you tell that to my parents, like, oh, congratulations. You lasted a year and a half in one company.
You unloyal son.
Yeah.
Okay. So then where'd you go to? So you hit the high marks, right? Yeah. With resilience. And did you learn some stuff though?
I learned a lot. There. It was an interesting dynamic too, because, from a compensation standpoint, managers were paid off of revenue, but I was paid off of gross profit. Right. So my manager would be sitting there saying, hey, we got to get this deal across the line. And I'm like, well, I'm not lowering my price. That's taking money directly out of my pocket.
Yeah.
Right. And I was already making pretty poor money, even though I was successful. I mean, my last quarter there, I think it was 175% of plan. But, you learn to really just stick to your guns and be firm. You're sitting across there and you're talking to a business owner and they're like, well, is there anything you can do with this price? And you just look them in the eyes and you say, no, this is as low as I can go.
Yeah.
And it's exhilarating. I'm getting goosebumps right now, just remembering those moments where you're just sitting there and you're like, nope, this is the lowest I can go. And I definitely could have gone lower. But I think what it really ultimately taught me more importantly was, believing in the value of yourself and what you're bringing to the table and say, no, I'm not worth less money. This is my price because this is what I'm worth.
Yeah. Ryan, was there a job that you were unloyal to, in the words of Blake's parents? No offense, Blake's parents, but
No, I stayed at the same company, a large bank, for quite a few years, but lasted probably a year and a half on average at each job within the company.
And folks, if you can't see Ryan's face when he's describing this bank, he seems very excited. Sarcasm.
No, it was some formative years for sure.
But you're happy to be here today.
Very, very happy to be here today.
So Blake, we're jumping to to your next job, you unloyal person.
Mhm.
Well, where did you go next?
So, from there, I said, you know what, I want to go into more strategic and consultative, sales type roles, and really found a passion for the human capital management space. Although, and I have said this countless times, I hate that phrase.
I was going to say, like,
management.
you need to translate that for myself and for a lot of people listening here. Human capital management.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's basically managing your people. It's now I think it's one of the reasons you see, the head of HR is now the head of people, particularly in our world, in the startup world, because it's not the head of HR, because HR, has its own connotations as well. But yeah, so human capital management, right? It's managing your people, right?
Yep.
So it's everything from, benefits to performance and compensation and operations. It covers a lot of different facets. And, the conversations I started having with business owners, I was like, okay, this is great. Like, this is real strategic conversations. Like, okay, where's your business now? And where do you want to take it? And where am I going to fit in to help you if I can?
Okay. So you're in human capital management.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's just jump to venture. So you obviously have a bunch of, unloyal tracks. You've learned a lot, probably pretty good at sales. Hopefully your parents are starting to get more proud as you're climbing the ladder in different industries. But then tell us about venture. How did you jump from, HR to venture?
So I love this story, as you know. In my previous roles before coming to Loud, right, I worked with a lot of founders, right, and I found my niche was working with startups because I loved playing an active role in supporting their growth, right, and taking them to the next phase. I mean, one of my last clients that I had was they had 3 employees when I first brought them on, and then in a year and a half they had about 70 employees, and just playing a role in helping them grow and supporting them and providing the right solutions and the service and support for that. It was huge. And I through that experience I realized that venture capital I thought was my dream career path, my absolute dream. And as you guys may recall, back in 2016, the Mega Millions lottery, right? It kept rolling over because there wasn't a winning ticket, right? And then it got over $1 billion. Over $1 billion. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, I don't buy lottery tickets. I don't really consider myself, a gambler, although, some people call us that in the VC world, that we're gamblers for, I won't get into that. I won't go down that path. But anyway, I was like, all right, I'll buy some lottery tickets. My friends and I, we all went in on it, and, naturally the conversation goes, so if you win, what would you do? And I knew, like, down to my core, I was like, I would start a venture capital firm, and I would hire a bunch of great people around me, and I would take an activist role in supporting early stage companies. I was like, that's my dream, which then translates then into, a conversation. People are like, okay, well, if that's your dream job to go work in venture capital, why don't you just go do it? I'm like, okay, well, easier said than done, right? As you guys know, this industry there's no clear path to get into venture, right? It's, you see like, oh, you go into investment banking for a few years, then go into venture capital. That's not always true, right? And, you have founders who are really successful and then decide, I want to go into venture capital and support other entrepreneurs. I'm sure you can relate to that, Navin. But I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what I was supposed to do and how I was supposed to get into venture, but I knew that that's where I wanted to go. I felt like that was my true calling.
Yeah. And we get a lot of people that are interested in venture capital, and you said it really well. There's really not a direct pathway, and there's not enough information out there of how you get involved. It's literally a huge reason of why we have this podcast, because we're just trying to open up the doors to how we got here, why we're here, what we see as the opportunity, and how we can get more people interested and hopefully in the industry. So I think that's a really good point. So then, so did you win the lottery ticket, the lottery, or what happened next?
So I did not. But one of my biggest takeaways is that you can create your own luck, right? And as it so happened, I went to a networking event, in May 2019. I was sponsoring it at the company I was working for, and there was a VC firm that was the featured company and the featured speaker, which was Dr. Navin Goyal. And
that's right.
And
May 2019. Okay.
May 2019. And I was just absolutely blown away by you, by the rest of the team, getting a chance to speak with all of you guys and your presentation. I was literally sitting on the edge of my seat and just completely captivated, because I was like, this is exactly what I would love to do, right? Because it's not just about writing checks, right? It's taking an active role in supporting the portfolio companies, which still baffles me that there aren't, more VCs that take that active approach, right? Because if you're supporting your portfolio companies in a more deliberate manner, chances are they're going to be more successful, which only means more success for the investors and the VC firm itself, right? And so, I literally couldn't stop thinking about it for 4 months.
I appreciate the kind words, but as a recap, that talk was my transition from physician mindset to bringing the characteristics that I learned as a physician and infusing that into entrepreneurship and venture capital. So that talk, which I vividly remember because I felt like I was in my element, I was truly speaking from the heart, and it was talking about why I'm literally spending all my time and energy on this opportunity. So you just happened to be there and catch literally me like looking for my fulfillment, and I found it, and I want to just share to the world what we can do, and I still do that. But, 6 months later, I left my practice and jumped full-time into Loud Capital. And this is now my full-time career, and obviously talk about it and try to educate people on it. And I'm so glad that you were there, and several months later in the organization.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was incredible. And I just, what I want, people listening to just understand is that, if you want something, go and get it. Right. And like I said, I didn't stop thinking about it for 4 months. And so I, reached out to Nishad, who was in Chicago, and I said, hey, I'd love to reconnect with you. And we got on the phone, and I just put it out there. I said, hey, I want to come work for you guys. I want to, please tell me how I can get involved. And, kind of the rest is history.
What would you say if someone called in right now and said, well, you were pretty lucky to be part of a company that was sponsoring this event. That was just a lucky place and a lucky time to be there, Blake. What do you say to other people who aren't in a job sponsoring different events?
Yeah. So I always really have disliked that phrase that people say that, oh, you were lucky. I always believed, like I said before, that you create your own luck, right? There are a million networking events that I could have chose to sponsor on behalf of, because I chose that event.
Got it.
I chose that event. And I said, all right, I think this is a good event for me to attend. And it was, from the company I was, for the capacity and the work that I was doing at the other company. But, ultimately it led to this. But I could have just done nothing. I could have never reached out to Nishad. I never could have reached out to you guys. But I said, hey, you know what? I haven't stopped thinking about this for 4 months. I should actually do something about this. And that's where I would say there's always luck, I guess, involved in everything. But then, what do you do when that lucky opportunity crosses your path?
Yeah. And I'm going to do a little side story here because my wife would love this. But you know how there's games you play when you meet someone and you're supposed to wait 24, 48 hours to call. I guess nowadays it's texting, social media, messaging, whatever. Back then it was simply calling. And I met my wife late one night at a bar, and we started talking. And she still makes fun of me to this day because I called her the next day in the afternoon. So we're probably talking 10 hours later. And, we're married, we have kids, we're good, but she still makes fun of me. But you know what I tell her? I knew what I wanted. I knew I wanted to call, so I called. And I think you can apply that to a lot of things. You were telling me you were riled up, you were at the edge of your seat. How many people feel that way in so many situations, let that feeling die down into perhaps regret, right? The worst thing that could have happened is you reached out to Nishad, he didn't respond, or he said no, and that was it. Or maybe you persisted, but you reached out, right? And then that first conversation or the first time you were speaking, what happened after that?
Yeah. And I mean, just to touch on what you said, I agree with that 100%. And that's what I told myself, and that's why I deliberated for 4 months. I was like, what's the worst going to happen? Nishad's going to say no, and I don't think you're a good fit. And, luckily that wasn't the case. But yeah, so the next thing was, getting to know Nishad, and he's saying, all right, well, let's see where we can kind of, pull you into the loop here. And, lucky enough, the Chicago Bulls venture competition was gearing up, and Nishad asked me to if I wanted to get involved, and was very grateful for the opportunity to do that and to get to know, the whole team. But, working on that project, it was amazing because I was, doing this work on the side in addition to my full-time job, right? And my other responsibilities, just like so many people have before, right? And, working nights, working weekends, and it was funny because the company I was working for banned the Google Suite on on the laptops and on the network. So, I was walking around all day with 2 laptops in my bag and, having to get off the network to answer emails and dealing with that was just kind of like a fun, memory to look back to. But, just getting involved with the competition and playing a really active role in that. It was an incredible experience.
Let me share a memory from that time when Nishad said, hey, when you guys come in from Columbus and fly in and meet with the Bulls executives, Blake's going to run the meeting. And I said, okay, I trust you, Nishad. Let's do it. We sit down. I didn't think much about it. Then I realized we're in the United Center in the executive suite somewhere in a conference room, and we're talking about the venture competition that's about to happen with all the Bulls execs, and people have been working on this project for months. They had teams of marketing, et cetera. And it was awesome. It was a great partnership. And I remember you just opening up and literally commanding that meeting like it was 3 years under your belt. Like, let's do this. Boom, 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 boom. And I just remember looking at you like, who is this guy? literally. And I mean, that's a very large stage. And with a new organization, with a new team of people. And I think several of us flew in from Columbus that day, and you just nailed it. And, it was a proud moment, even though I barely knew you, but it was one of those, all right, this is one of our guys. And, from there, here we are talking on a podcast a year later, or more than a year later.
Well, more than a year since the Bulls competition,
Yep.
but yeah, just over a year since I joined the team full time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted to share that, if someone else were to say, hey, well, you were lucky to do that. No. Blake went and got his spot there, and he earned it. And, when an opportunity came on the table, to present at the United Center, a lot of people might have said, no, I'll just kind of, be a shadow or just wait it, but you just did it. So, I really appreciate that. And I think more people who push forward, not being afraid to hear a no or get rejected, you will find plenty of quote unquote lucky opportunities for yourself.
Absolutely. And, frankly, we didn't have a position at the time.
We did not.
We literally, were forced to make a position, and I say forced in a very light way, but just that ambition and that willingness to step out on a ledge. It's what we really value in anyone, and that's that's I think a perfect lesson. And whether it be in venture or anything, if you're willing to go out on a limb and just be okay with whatever is going to happen, but you are so passionate about it and you care so much about it, you made a position for yourself, and that's really rare. I think, especially these days, maybe outside of a company that you're already in, especially, but that's an attribute, I think, just even outside of venture that this world needs more of.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And I think it all really, again, ties back to what we were talking about in the beginning is, right, it's finding your purpose, right? And providing an impact. And, I know it's so cliche, but when you feel so passionate about what you're doing and what you're a part of, it just doesn't feel like work. And I know that's so cliche, but
it's true.
It's just, that's honestly how I feel about working here at Loud and what we're building here.
I mean, look, in the eyes of many folks in society, I was in a job as an anesthesiologist in a really, really incredible job, like an incredible career. And I was happy for a while, but eventually the fulfillment went low. And, entrepreneurship, the bug got me. And then venture capital, the bug got me. And my passion is just, a 180. And I'm a pretty optimistic, energetic person. I will never forget one of my partners in my anesthesia practice said, man, who are you? Like, I don't even recognize you, because as soon as you're at work at the hospital, like you're not Navin. And he saw me in an event somewhere, some entrepreneurial happy hour networking. And he's like, man, this is the light that I see in you. And he observed that to be so obvious. And I knew I was passionate about it, but to be so obvious externally was like, wow, I'm like a zombie right now, And, you can't pick where you're going to be happy, but you do have to listen to your heart, to your gut. And I think that's one of the morals of the story, right?
Yep.
And it's okay to feel that way.
Yeah. And I think the other aspect of it is you have that light, you have that ambition, you have that fulfillment, but you have to have resilience as well, because, even when you dive into that, it doesn't always go to plan. It doesn't always, go smoothly. And, just being able to, continue that, going out on the ledge, it's really the same type of mindset. I'm out on this ledge. I'm going to go out on this ledge. But once you're out on the ledge, when it's not smooth sailing, you have to have that same resilience and, apply that to whatever you're doing, because things don't always happen right away as you want them to, as you plan them to, as everyone around you thinks should happen for you to do it, to stay in it, to stay loyal to your dreams. And that's the difference. You have to stay loyal to your passion and your dreams, not necessarily any type of specific job or role or whatever it might be, if it's not that fulfillment that you have.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And as a reminder to people, I spent 30 years studying to put people to sleep. And then I jumped ship. And now my full-time job is to wake people up. Now think about that. Now when you talk about 180, when you talk about, wait, what? Right? And here I am. I'm excited. I'm happy. I'm in a less quote unquote prestigious position, but I'm happier than I've ever been. And obviously half of it is surrounded by great people like you. So
actually, I have one more question.
Okay.
I think everyone out there listening and viewing this podcast, they really want to know, when did you know that you were the Green Goblin?
But you can't do this to me. You know how much I sacrificed?
Spider-Man's arch nemesis. When did you finally figure it out?
Yeah. So for those that are listening, I have been told maybe 100 times in my life that I look like Willem Dafoe, particularly from his role in Spider-Man. And I think the first time I ever heard it was at a grocery store. It's like, wait, have you seen Spider-Man? You look like the guy from Spider-Man. I'm like, I don't really look like Peter Parker. She goes, no, not Peter Parker, the Green Goblin. I'm like, oh, jeez. And I was like, oh, I guess Willem Dafoe. I've never heard that before. And then ever since that day, I don't know, that was 10 years ago, I just get it nonstop. And he's coming back out in the new Spider-Man movie. So I'm going to get it even more now. So
oh, yeah.
In theaters. December 10th.
Yeah, no free ads. No free ads.
All right. So I want to say thank you, Blake, for being on here. Thank you, Ryan, for being my partner in crime on this podcast. It's really about having candid conversations and venture capital when it comes to founders, investors, entrepreneurs, and stakeholders. Everyone we can impact positively. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.